I need to spread it out a bit. But anyway, good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Brand, and I'm delighted to do a seminar here in San Diego because I can say here in San Diego because I live in San Diego. I do probably 90% of my seminars outside of our county, but it's nice to talk to locals for a change. Um, I'll get into my material and so forth as I go, but just to kind of start out to show the importance of the topic, the percentage does vary. It's a little higher in LA than here, and super rural areas it's lower, but on average, around 80% of lawsuits against residential agents in California are about red flag disclosure issues. A typical scenario is the buyers move in and they discover something that's wrong with the property or they think is wrong. And if they were told about it, if it was disclosed, there's no issue. But hey, nobody told us about this. And then in most other states, they try to fix it. In California, they call an attorney. So that's one of the reasons we have a high litigation rate. I never charge a real estate firm or association for what I do. I do not sell anything at my presentation. So I'm very graciously sponsored by service providers. Okay, let's get going. And I'll just rapid fire talk about my topic here. And if you ever have any questions you want to explore, you got a unique question or a unique property, you want my opinion, you may not want it, but if you do, you can call me anytime or email me. There's no charge, no catch. I do that a couple of hours every day, actually. So that's available to you. So just assuming that everybody here uses the AVID, it's not everybody does, but the vast majority of agents do. But even if you don't, the principle applies here. Notice it says, I have circled there, it's a visual inspection. So a question that may arise is that mean that when you're looking around in your limited inspection as an agent, it's not a home inspection and so forth, um, it's sort of like, is it only visual? Because it seems to say that on the form. The answer is actually no, even though it does say visual inspection. It's really interpreted most of the time, overwhelmingly, as any sensory perception. So, for example, you're at a two-story property, either side of the deal, you're doing your avid thing, and you're upstairs, and you just kind of notice that the hallway floor, not dramatically, but slightly, is just a little bit off, which is not unusual. Nothing that scares you. It's just a little bit off. Well, you look at it, you really can't tell. So that would be a disclosure, some unevenness noted at upstairs hallway floor. That's not really visually driven. Strong odor. You certainly can't see that. You're in the kitchen and you pick up kind of a mildew, musty odor, which is a big red flag because of the water. And we've all heard the stories of a buyer moves into a home. There's all kinds of water problems in the walls of the kitchen, and they have to move out to well, I was going to say the Holiday Inn will upgrade to the Marriott or the Hyatt, and for like a month or longer. But we have to be careful how we mention things. We don't want to use terms like mold or mildew because that's outside of our standard of care. So in the notes that you'll be getting, and they're no cost, and they'll be sent to you by the association, there's just words that I suggest using, like obvious odor noted in kitchen, apparent, because you want to point it out, but you don't want to say musty or mildew. That's just outside of a real estate licensee standard of care. So even though we think of it as a visual inspection, and it probably primarily is, it's really multisensory. And the only two categories that we cover as we're walking around, and our inspection, contrary to as compared to a professional home inspection, is much shorter in length of time. But the two topics or the two things we look for are defects and red flags. I think everybody knows the definition, but just real quickly, a defect is where there's no question that something's wrong, something's broken. There may be no desire to fix it, but it's busted or whatever. A red flag is different because we can kind of tell something wasn't quite right here, but we don't know if it's a current problem. The crack in the kitchen window is a current problem. Here in the family room, I don't know if this occurred five owners back or last month. A lot of agents would say there's a water stain, but it may not be water. They could have white wine stored in the attic, and a bottle could break or whatever. There's all kinds of possibilities. So we don't want to say it's a big stain. Definitely don't want to say it's a water stain. Just say like some staining noted at family room ceiling by window or something like that, wherever it is. A lot of this wording is in the notes that you'll be getting. You don't have to write all this down, but we have to just be careful that we don't kind of get ourselves in trouble by being too detailed and use terms that are really outside of our standard of care. A lot of challenges. I'll just mention a couple of them. Let's say I'm in the living room. I'm doing my Avid thing, and which is not a professional home inspection. It's a different kind of an arrangement, an expectation. And I'm in the living room, and I'm looking. There's nothing to say. I can't find anything to disclose. What some agents do is they're looking. What am I going to do? Oh, there's a fan, ceiling fan. I'll just say ceiling fan noted on the Avid. But a ceiling fan is not a defect or a red flag. It's really inventory, whether it's staying with the house, which it usually is or not. It's inventory. So we don't want to fill up the Avid with inventory. And the best expression I've seen over the many years of talking about this, and I'm pretty sure since I've been doing it 32 years, I probably talk about this topic more than anybody in the state of California. And nothing noted seems to be the best expression. There is a living room. I did go into it. I'm doing my limited visual Avid type inspection. I looked around adequately. I'm ignoring the inventory because that's not what I'm looking for. And I just didn't see anything really worth noting. So that's a perfectly good disclosure if that's the case. A spider web, let's say you're in the master bedroom and you're looking around and everything looks fine. Everything looks fine as an advertising comment. It's not a disclosure comment, but everything does look fine. You're looking for something. You see a little tiny spider web up in the corner. It's too minor. It doesn't affect the value or desirability of the property. I don't. I recommend that those kinds of things are not disclosed. So the best expression over the decade is impossible to find these surfaces that are all completely crack-free. So if you can't find anything else to say, and you kind of want to establish that you were there, a phrase or sentence that works very well is some cracks noted, and fill in the blanks for whatever applies, the backyard patio and the driveway or the chimney or the whatever. The word some, I'll probably mention this again, is a really good disclosure word, because if you say there's 3 cracks to the left of the master bathroom mirror, that's precise. There's 3. And maybe you missed one, or maybe there's a crack that it's really 2 cracks and looks like one. The word some solves all of that because it means more than one. As long as there's more than one, that's a good word to use. And in terms of where to write all this stuff down, there's other places, but if you haven't got to it yet, especially if you have a lot to disclose and the form's filled up, don't forget about the near the end of it, other observed or known conditions not specified above. That works really well. Stating the obvious. This is when, and well, before I mention it, when there's something obviously either wrong or potentially wrong with the property, sometimes agents don't mention it because they think it's an insult to the intelligence to whoever is reading my comment because it's so obvious. But we never want to refrain from disclosing something. You'd be amazed at how primarily buyers, they're the ones doing the suing when they move in, say, I didn't even notice that, or something of that nature. So these are real, but they're kind of funny to show you how far we've gone in our society. By the way, especially in Southern California, to clarify things that you wouldn't think need to be clarified, and the stores are just trying to keep from being sued. Most of the ice that I have bought has been frozen. I don't know that they need to say that. One more: pizza, open box before eating pizza. I have actually about 15 of these sorts of things. I just mentioned the two to kind of give an example. So let's talk about disclosing something that is near a property other than just other houses or whatever. So let's say you're involved. Let's say you have the buyers and they're interested in the property we see to our right, the white fence. Some agents make a mistake when there's going to be a deal. They make a mistake by not mentioning the school across the street because they think it's so obvious. Like if there was a Walmart across the street, you don't have to mention it. I mean, it's an insult to the client's, ability to see things. You still have to mention it. How we mention it is important, very important, because lawsuits can emanate from that. Fortunately, the way to do it right is easier and briefer than the way to do it wrong. So, for example, a lot of agents would say there's a school across the street, there's an issue with gridlock, kids dropped off in the morning, picked up, in the afternoon. And some gridlock situations are so massive. If you live there, you can't get out of your driveway for like an hour and a half or 2 hours. Weekend activities, cheerleader practice, basketball practice, just all the stuff that goes on at a school. And you think, well, how can I list them all? Well, there's a way to do that. Very briefly, I'll get to in a minute. Where was I here? I go everywhere. BLA, Santa Monica Freeway, probably, I don't know, La Cienega, and I-10. Anyway, busy freeway, house really close. Let's say this is a subject property. You might just think, well, I'll just say there's a freeway next to the house or something. Some agents don't even disclose that because they think it's so obvious that it's like an insult to the client's ability to see things, but it's not. Others make a mistake where they have too many things. It's extra noisy during morning rush hour and afternoon rush hour. It's noisy all the time, but especially then. We've had problems with blown out tires that fly off the freeway and, land on our roof or knock our fence over. There's people like, I don't think the term vagrants is good to use now, but something like that, hanging out at the on-ramp all day long. So we want to make a disclosure that covers the proximity of the freeway. One mistake that many agents make is they'll say, well, they have the buyer. Well, my buyer can see this. They see that this is probably one of the biggest freeways in the country. They're right next to it. Do I really have to tell them? And the answer is absolutely yes. How we tell them is important. Fortunately, it's easier to inform them the right way than to like write a book on it. And I'll get you an answer here. One more thing. I'll only mention where this is because I think everybody listening lives in San Diego. This is it Carl's? Well, I was going to say Carlsbad or Encinitas, one or the other. There's a Target there. It's off of El Camino Real. I usually don't get street names, but you'll know about them. Target on the left, and I forget what's on the right. And I think there's 5 buildings. Well, some nice homes, kind of view homes, cost a little bit more because of their location. On the far left is a Target. And everybody that moved into here that has one of these homes, they know there's going to be noise from the shopping center. They know there are going to be deliveries. But Target on the far left, and I think there's a Ralph's or an Albertsons or something on maybe Stater Brothers on the far right. They're open 24 hours a day. So, or they have long hours. So there's noise all the time. So people on the far left that are behind Target, they say there are deliveries 24/7. I mean, we don't mind during the day and in the early evening. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. These semi trucks pull up and they back up, beep, beep, beep. The forklifts come out. The guys are yelling at each other because they're far away, and it never stops. So we want to make a disclosure that covers the proximity of the shopping center to any of these homes here that will take care of everything. We don't want to make the mistake of saying anybody that buys one of these homes can look out the backyard or over the fence and see what's there. That never works, or 99% doesn't work. Buyers or their attorney will say they were so in love with the home, they were so captivated by it, they blocked everything else out and didn't notice anything. So anyway, so yes, we have to disclose things that are like overly obvious. And I'll give you some examples. So when disclosing something near the property, it's best to disclose what's there, never details of what possibly could bother a buyer about what's there, because we don't know, and the list will never be long enough. So, for example, not divinely inspired, but an ideal disclosure is there is a freeway near the house. You don't have to define near. That means it's close by. And freeway's fine, highway, whatever, but freeway is probably better in this example. And even though that seems incredibly obvious, it's still a really good idea to disclose something that could impact the livability of the home. A school is close to this property. That relieves you of talking about the gridlock of the drop off and pickup, the noise from the playground, the practice of the cheerleaders and the basketball, whatever. That's because whatever they complain about, it's because there is a school close to this property that you bought, and you were told that in advance. And the key to this, of course, is always making sure they know that in advance. And back to our shopping center here, something like, it doesn't have to be exactly this way. There's a shopping center located behind this property that covers everything. There's going to be deliveries. There are deliveries behind shopping centers. If somebody's behind Target, well, Target's open, well, not 20, maybe not 24 hours, but long hours, but they have deliveries all the time. And there's another store on the right that they have deliveries all the time. And that's just kind of a given. So just the issue is that some agents say, well, it's so obvious that there's a shopping center there. I don't want to insult the client's attention, ability to perceive. So I'm not going to mention it. Oh, we still got to mention it. But you don't have to get into detail. It's better not to get into detail, make it more of a blanket statement, because almost any complaint that they may have because of the proximity to the shopping center is in that disclosure, that kind of generic disclosure. Okay, and I will check the questions. I have a chat thing here. No, that's from one of our sponsors. You can always put a question in the chat. And by the way, you can call me anytime at all. My phone number and information will be given to you if you have a question about disclosure, and I'll give you my opinion, and there's no charge or whatever. If you want to send me an In-N-Out Burger coupon, fine. No, I'm only kidding. Okay, rough draft disclosure to a final disclosure. It's a technique that's free of charge. Don't have to download anything. Takes about a half a minute. Let's say I am in the kitchen and I'm doing my agent's avid type limited visual inspection, which in no way is like a professional home inspection. It's got very different and easier parameters around it and less liability, but there is still some liability. Got the refrigerator kind of to the right of what you see, and on the left on the wall, what to me would look kind of like a mold thing. I would never want to say that out loud. I definitely would never want to write it down, but that's kind of what I would think. So I think I better disclose that. So here we'll start out with not a very good disclosure, but since I look at tons of TDSs, I see this a lot. So we start out with 2 small black mold stains noted. There could be an objection to 2. See the top one? There's a big stain, and the upper left there's another little one. People would argue over that. Black, is it really black, or is it dark brown, or is it whatever? Mold, we never, ever, ever want to write that word down or say it out loud. So we just that's our rough draft. And maybe in our home or home office, after we've left the property. We can write stuff like this down at the property, but get back to our home office and we just eliminate every word we can before we put it on the Avid. Don't have to say two, um, small, never a color, and no way in the world I'll ever write mold down. So I end up with stains noted. That's all that's necessary. It calls it a prospective buyer's attention to looking at the stains there. They can do whatever they want to about it, but at least they've been informed. It's been disclosed to them. So that's rough draft two, kind of final. By the way, something that is relatively new, not brand new, but is becoming more of an issue statewide, is the fact that a lot of homeowners have uh, ways of listening, video cameras, other audio type things, where they can hear what prospective buyers have said when they're walking around the property. So we have to be kind of careful about that. So a good idea, if you're showing property and they're in your car, let's say, you pull up, say to the client, before you open the doors, this is one of the homes we're looking at in person. A lot of people have security devices. They're very sensitive. They pick up everything that you can see and anything that you could hear. They pick up a lot of stuff. And very often the sellers will, when they get home, after work or whatever, and there's been two or three showings, they sit down and they check out these security devices to see what was said, whatever. And if we have said, what a crummy looking living room, that could be a deal killer or something. We don't want them to hear that. And there's a lot of other things we don't want them to hear. But these kind of devices pick up everything. So it's good to caution buyers because they're really into looking at the house. They're not thinking about all the liability stuff. Say, if you have any complaints or criticisms about the property, I want to hear them, but I don't want to hear them on this visit until we're pulling out onto the street. Don't mention it in the house. Pretend like the sellers are standing next to you. Don't mention it in the driveway. Wait till we're done. We're in the car and the windows are shut and we've already drived away. So it's a good thing to kind of caution them because this really wasn't an issue, years ago. Let me check, see if there's any questions. No. Okay, I'll get a sip of water here. All right. What do we have next? Okay. Should you disclose wear and tear items? Is that a good idea, or is that like going too far, or it's just filler or something like that? And the answer is, it kind of depends. Usually, we want to err on the side of over disclosure than under disclosure, but some of the paint is peeling, it's old, and the wallpaper's a little frayed or scuff marks and all that sort of thing. And usually we don't disclose the typical standard to be expected wear and tear kinds of things. That's like a given. The home is 18 years old and there's going to be wear and tear in there. And that's just usually not a disclosure issue. Once you start disclosing every little sign of aging or some minor thing that could be wrong with it because it's been around so long, you got to disclose all of them. And then the Avid gets completely filled up with a lot of observations, maybe criticisms that it's over the top. No buyer needs to know all of them. They're all like a given, because the home's 18 years old. They're going to expect certain things. And what happens is there's way, way, way too much information in the Avid. I won't go into this heavily because of our time frame, but I sometimes refer to this. This is a game. I've never played it, but it's a call. Yeah, Where's Waldo? And Waldo is a guy somewhere in the picture. He wears a red and white striped shirt and has a little beanie cap on and all that. I don't know the game, but I think it's like Where's Waldo? You got to find him. And if you look in the kind of the middle of the little of the picture, middle of the, wait a minute, did I, don't I have more of that? Oh, I think I erased it. So anyway, middle of the picture, you can see the red and white striped towel that you can see Waldo there. I like Waldo to represent the meaningful disclosure that we want to get out there, but there's so many other the other people, minor miscellaneous things to talk about that it gets buried. So we want to make sure we're being selective in what we disclose. We don't want to have too much in the avid, things that could really affect the value or desirability. Enough of Waldo. Okay, a controversial issue. In most of California, there's some little pocket areas where it isn't, but in almost every larger metropolitan area, this is a kind of a standard practice question. I'll tell you what the standard practice answer is, but make sure you are in harmony with, if you hang your license somewhere, you do what the broker owner wants. About taking photos during a visual inspection. Generally speaking, not a good idea. And the reason it's not a good idea is because this is not advertising. This is the limited, like Avid inspection, is because it's photography is not called for. It's never requested. It's never mandated. It's never mentioned, which means that if we want to keep our liability in check, we don't want to take pictures of something like a crack in the wall, whatever, because we're not required to. And we don't want to do things that we're not required to. And now our liability just, scoots up and so forth. So just have to be careful about what you're taking photos of. It's a visual inspection. It's not a photography inspection, competent and diligent visual. And we don't want to, if we take photos of everything that somebody could possibly be thinking about, we'll have way too many photos. It'll clog up the whole disclosure process, and that doesn't do anybody any good. One exception, I will say possible exception, but I think it's really a kind of a mandatory exception. Let's say you have the buyer, it could be the listing side, but the buyer, and the rest of the house looks like it's in good shape. You can walk around, looks, good housekeeping. But because the sellers are preparing to move out, in many cases, especially if you're close to closing time, closing date, the receptacle for all the stuff they have, I was going to say junk, but stuff, is the garage. So if you're at the time you're doing your visual inspection, your Avid thing, that you show up and it looks like that, we definitely want to disclaim the room. It's a visual inspection, but we can't do that in rooms or areas that are clogged up, so to speak. So let me just back up here for a second. So, what a lot of companies do, and I don't have slides on it because companies don't do this. So I want to just tell you, just extemporaneous. A lot of companies basically say that they want their agent to, post something at the property and correspond, unable to inspect garage due to extensive personal belongings. Prior to closing, if you would like me to return, I would be glad to do so. Often it's said at no additional charge to complete the home and the garage and add that to my disclosures. The reality is that even though that's a really good thing to document, the reality is you never get asked. There's too many other things going on. And so it's good when it closes that you've got a exception, so to speak, in your paperwork, in your disclosure dialogue that, like in so many words, don't come after me or my company with anything in the garage. I've disclaimed it. I can't get in. And it was never cleaned up in time for me to look at. So I have more in the notes about that. I'm sorry, here we are, one more there. So this was an interesting case, just a kind of a little lesson here. Elderly man bought this home. He was like mid-90s or something, and was doing pretty good. And there was really no disclosure at all about the property. It was in, reasonably good shape. It wasn't until after he moved in that he noticed this nice, what he thought was a park behind his house was actually a cemetery. He just, because of his vision, he just couldn't see it. He could just see so many feet or yards. So this proximity of not a funeral home, but a cemetery is definitely a disclosure issue. This is the kind of thing where we may think, well, didn't they see that? I mean, is it an insult to their intelligence? And the answer is no. You still have to mention it. So anyway, it became a lawsuit because he said that the owner, now keep in mind, mid-90s, said, I had no idea there was a cemetery there. And some people don't care. He did. He said, I would never have bought this home if I knew that. Nobody told me. And because of my vision at 95, I can't see that far. And it was a actual lawsuit. And he won the lawsuit, by the way. So a simple solution is, even though it seems overly obvious, something, this is not divinely inspired, but something like this, a cemetery is located behind this property. You have to say it's good, it's bad, it's big, it's small, just let them know. They'll sign off on it and there'll be no recourse, especially if, they're elderly or impaired or something in some way. Just a little lesson here in kind of the real world of real estate. There's been some lawsuits where, let's say there was a home inspection done, you attended, you never want to follow the home inspector around. That's really, really bad to do. But you attended, sat in the living room or the family room, and the inspector left, maybe the prospective buyers left. The termite guys are also there. And so you are the last two individuals left in the home. And you're just talking and you're by this windowsill. You see what is on the left there. That is, and maybe you can't see it too well. It's not the best picture in the world, but that's dry rot. And the termite guy is going to disclose that there's dry rot, but we're not going to. We should make a disclosure, but we don't want to use the term dry rot because that's about a wood destroying organism. And we never want to, it's outside of our standard of care as real estate licensees to bring up the kind of the technical point that it's a wood destroying organism. So we don't want to do that. So the termite inspector would probably, in so many words, some variation, just this is a big deal for them. Dry rot noted windowsill probably has to be replaced or something like that, or they would recommend it. So dry rot noted, but we don't want to mention dry rot. The identification of it is just outside of our standard of care. So we still want to make a disclosure. We just want to use different language so it doesn't backfire on us and we stay within, again, our standard of care. Damage noted to windowsill. So we're talking about the same thing. Termite guy is allowed to comment on it. Technically, we are not. We can just tell that there's damage. Even saying or writing down dry rot is a diagnosis on our part. It may be something else. We don't need to know, and we don't want the liability for guessing. We want to basically stay in our lane of liability. Let me quickly look what I got here. We got about 10 or 15 minutes to go. Yeah, this is an important item in fact, let me just show you here. I won't get you dizzy, but just got lots and lots and lots and lots, maybe you're getting dizzy, lots of information. Where was I? I got to start again. No, I won't do that. Okay. So we were right here. Okay. It's a good idea by the way, if I don't get to it, let me just mention about home inspectors. There is no licensing of home inspectors in California. There is not a single licensed home inspector in California. I haven't got the latest within the last month, but I believe it's like 44 states licensed home inspectors. When that first started years ago, I thought we'd be the first kid on the block because this is where almost all the lawsuits take place. It just didn't happen. So you never, if you recommend a home inspector, but never want to recommend one, but a home inspection, make sure you never write down, I recommend you only utilize the services of a licensed home inspector. There aren't any. You could say qualified home inspector. You could say professional. Just remember that our state, and there's one or two others, forget their name, Utah, one of them, I'm not sure. There's no licensing at all. There's basically no control over it. There's a little bit, but not much. But avoid completing the avid during the home inspection. This is when you have the buyers. They're really excited. They want to be there for the home inspection. You can't always do this scenario, I realize, but the best scenario is you've already gotten into the property. I know that can be a challenge, but you never want to be doing your avid while the home inspector's there, but maybe before, if you can get in, your avid is done, is complete, it's finished. The home inspector is there. The maybe out of town buyers want to meet the person and they want to walk around, that do whatever they want. That's great. I don't want to be following them around, and I don't want to be doing my limited agent's inspection when I'm listening to a professional home inspector mention all kinds of things that are outside my standard of care, but now I've heard them and I kind of have to write them down. So, for example, let's say this is the master bedroom. Now, in this photo, it's a limited photo, but I don't see anything wrong here that I disclose or anything that's suspicious. I'm there. I'm not moving. I'm not going to move. Definitely not going to move that flower painting off the wall. So there's nothing for me to disclose. But if the home inspector's there and I'm tagging along, doing my avid at the same time, most inspectors will take a picture like that or a painting off the wall. And let's say it looks like that. Well, that's a big deal. It's a big disclosure, whether it's an active issue or not. But I have to make sure I disclose it to provide a service to the client and to cover myself. But when I'm there by myself, since I categorically, as a real estate licensee in California, do not move things out of the way, I would have nothing to say about it. I wouldn't even mention that there's a painting there. So we have the kind of the clash of standards of care. But to kind of summarize this point, it's a good idea, as much as you can, always hopefully to complete the avid prior to the home inspection if they're having one done. And make sure, as I mentioned earlier, never recommend they get a licensed home inspector. There are no licensed home inspectors in our state. Again, what did I say? 96 or 97? I'm sorry, 46 or 47. Forgot how many states we have. License them. We don't, for some odd reason. A good idea to never delay your visual inspection because of pending repairs, where the seller says, hey, I know that's broken. I know this. Before closing, we're going to have a handyman or somebody come in here and fix it all. You have to ignore that. Just mention what you see at the time you're there. And then days later, after you hopefully have done your avid thing, let's say you have the buyers, they maybe are even flying into town from Colorado or somewhere because they really want to meet the home inspector, look around. That's great. It's good to be there, but you've already done your avid, and it's good to sit it out, downstairs on the sofa. They may call you up to look at what's on the wall when that painting was removed in the master bedroom. You can look at it, but you've already done your agent's inspection. It still may need to be dealt with, but your liability profile is much better when you've got there first and you stayed within your standard of care. All right, let me just look at something here. Oh yeah, this is an important one. There's been some litigation on this, and let me just look at I got like 4 clocks in my office here. 10:49. Okay, about 10 minutes here. Just a second. I get a sip of water. Or whatever this is, but it is water. Okay. We're all familiar with this form. And let me just go to number 11. Noise problems or other nuisances. Okay. Yes or no? So in the scenario I'm going to mention is let's say we've all heard these stories. There is a dog that never stops barking, and the owners of the property and owners of the dog just will keep the dog out all the time, or let it out at 2 in the morning. So you think, well, it's a nuisance. This has got to be disclosed. The sellers that live next door to where the dog is have to disclose it. Not necessarily. It's only if they consider it to be a nuisance. So that's the big deal. And I'll give you an example here. So number 11, neighborhood noise problems or other nuisances. Now notice if I go up here, this is only disclosed if it's considered to be a problem. And there's a lot more to it than that, but that's kind of the gist of it. And if the agent filling this out or the seller filling this out, or I'm talking about any other form, I'll broaden it out to any form. It really depends on it's not whether that exists or not, it's whether they consider it to be a problem. So back down here, is this a problem? It wasn't disclosed. The buyers freaked out. And here, let's see, the buyers could have said that dog is driving us nuts, or let's say the neighbor that has the dog that's out all night, they're responsible for keeping the dog in. But maybe you never know if the buyers are going to say, we love hearing it. It reminds us of our pet. We used to have like a German Shepherd or whatever, same dog years ago. So it's not a problem. So the issue here is not whether or not it's a problem. It's whether or not the individual filling out the form thinks it's a problem. Driving us nuts? No problem. It all depends on their opinion. So never depend on your seller's perception of nuisance. If you have the listing side and your seller is not disclosing something that you think the vast majority of buyers would have an issue with, it may not need to be fixed. They would just have an issue with it. Make sure that at least you just make a disclosure, even if they're not going to. If you think it's a nuisance, disclose it, regardless of what your client thinks. Okay, let me just go here to a couple of things I want to mention for sure. Well, let me do building permits here. Can be a big deal. You know, a lot of homes, because of their age or whatever, there are modifications made. A lot of times, the people that made the modification structurally, whatever, there are three buyers, sellers back. I mean, and nobody's around that knows anything about it. But this kind of looks like, at first glance, kind of like a room addition on the back there. It may not be. This one definitely is. This is real, by the way. Yeah, we have a 1-bedroom apartment to rent out. Yeah, no thanks. But this kind of looks like it. But anyway, whether or not, ADUs require building permits. There are more and more of them. Yeah, if you've noticed, they're looks like they're made better. They look better, and they're a lot easier to get into a property with the cranes that they use, and it's just a lot easier, quicker. Just a day or two, it's a functioning dwelling unit and so forth. But the building permit issue is what we're talking about here. It could be like a man cave or whatever this is. All right, let's talk about that. If you look at not now, but when we're done, just pick up an Avid. Maybe there's one on your desk. Look at the first page. You don't even have to turn anything. First page of the Avid, it says, California law does not require the agent to inspect the following. And there's a list of, I think, 3 or 4 items. The first one is public records or permits. So we're not supposed to we're not supposed to go to City Hall or something like City Hall and do research and look at public records or permits outside of our standard of care. So we're not supposed to do that. And especially bring our client, either side of the deal, down with us to do some research. That's like over the top, litigious. Also, on the first page, it says by statute, agent is not obligated to pull permits or inspect public records. So we're told this really twice on the first page. 2 times, page 1 of the Avid, we're told that building permit verification is outside of our scope of care. So this is some wording that will be on the notes that you'll be getting. It's came from me. It's nothing profound, but it's worked really well. I put it out, again, I've been doing this 31, 32 years, a couple of decades ago, and it's a very popular way of writing this down. But make sure it's okay if you hang your license somewhere there. Buyers are advised to check with, and local municipality is better than city of, regarding building permit information. Now, something I will mention, because I live in San Diego, is it can be really confusing to a buyer that doesn't live here as to what city they're building in. So, for example, let's take Del Mar. Del Mar is a city, and it's west of I-5. But if you go east of I-5, there I know the area like Via de la Valle. There's a McDonald's and a bunch of stores out there, and a lot of horse stuff, for the races and so forth. It's really not the city of Del Mar. It's more unincorporated. It seems like it's Del Mar. It's called Del Mar. And there's different things like if you recommend to a buyer who's buying in La Jolla, and there may be building permits, the general advice is I encourage my buyers to go to the city of La Jolla, City Hall, whatever, and check for building permits. But as some or all of us know, La Jolla is not a city unto itself. Del Mar is, Carlsbad is, a lot of places are, and a lot of places aren't. So it's better to use the term local municipality, especially if you have some confusion, as some areas are a city, but you get out a little bit too far. It's still called that city, but it's kind of now in an unincorporated area. So we have to be careful. Buyers can say, I'm from New Jersey. I was told to go to the city of La Jolla, and I spent a day looking for it and I couldn't find it. And they're pretty much off the hook. They made an effort. And the reality is, oh, well, the agent made a mistake. It's handled like in downtown San Diego. It's not handled in La Jolla. So there you go. All right, a couple more minutes, 2 more minutes. Let me do this real quick here. I can't do the homeless issue. I won't have enough time. I will just say, though, that the term homeless is being modified depending on what part of California somewhere is in. Homeless, houseless, unhoused, transitional housing. You have to be up to date on what is going on and in that area. I have 2 minutes. This is kind of a fun one. I'll do this real quick and I'll be done. Stigmatized homes, a special potentially negative issue, or it can be a positive issue. So if there's a property, it's the subject property or just near the subject property that's stigmatized, we have to disclose that. We don't want the buyers to move in, especially from out of the area. Say we have people driving by all the time. Why are they driving? Because that house across the street, some big crime took place or whatever. So this is just an example. This is in Arcadia up in San Gabriel Valley, Father of the Bride house. And I took a picture of it when I was driving by once, and same house. And I have been by there many, many times. I never stop in. I don't want to bother anybody. But there is a crowd of people outside of that house every single day and into the evening. And some of them like to take those white picket fence things and they pull one out, a souvenir. It's all day long. This was, I won't go into this, Brady Bunch house. It's in North Hollywood area. Never did any filming here. They did it at Paramount. Not a bit of filming was done here, but it's used as the exterior. And that there's a whole story behind that. But disclose if a subject property is stigmatized or if the subject property is reasonably near a stigmatized property. And we've got several in Coronado and other places. Okay, I am at the top of the hour here. So let me just mention that if you would like me, there's no cost at all in this, and I don't sell anything, to come to your office or do it on Zoom to do a seminar like this, and I've got other material too, but it's all on this subject. Just contact me. I do it all the time. I do it statewide, and I live right here. So um, disclosure info at AOL.com. I think I'm the last remaining member of AOL. Just contact me anytime. And I want to thank again sponsors, Elite Premier of America. So I will say goodbye to everybody, and I'll